Are we as fans witnessing the fall of Test cricket, the demise of Test cricket? Are we really seeing that? Is Test cricket in jeopardy all around the world, but mainly in South Africa? I think we're going to talk about a South African context mainly, but we're going to draw comparisons to the rest of the world, and we're going to talk about this topic. I thought it would be a nice little continuation of our talks that we've been having since the test match ended. And I'm going to continue those conversations going into tomorrow until we have a special show for you on Thursday that I'm looking very much forward to and really excited about. But before we get into today's topic, before we get started, please, there's a red button. If it's red at the bottom of the screen, click it, please. It shouldn't be red. It should be gray or white or whatever, or dark, whatever color theme of YouTube you have, but click that subscribe button and click that notification bell. What I also need you guys to please do is download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. I'm putting it up on the screen now so that you guys can have a look at what the latest cover is, and that's Dean Elgar on the front cover being a captain. Please go and look at that latest issue. It's very important that you guys support us with that. It's 100% free. We're putting a hell of a lot of work to bring you guys a free edition of a magazine every single month. So please go ahead and get your copy and all back issues too. But if you also are very passionate about improving South African cricket and promoting South African cricket and getting involved with those type of things and getting involved with us to help us do so, then please become a patron today. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. You can become a patron today and we can start that journey together as a community, because this community is growing quickly, and I'm really very thankful to all of you guys out there that is helping this community grow. The bigger it grows, the more impact we can have, guys, and influence we can have. So please go ahead and become a patron today. And if you guys want regular updates, reviews, features, opinion pieces, news stories, etc., on a daily basis, then go to cricketfanaticsmag.com. Adaptable to your tablet, to your computer, as well as your mobile device. So please go ahead and go and visit us there too. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Looking forward to discussing this topic with you guys and seeing what you guys think about this. A very good evening. Welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host, Khalid. This is my co-host, Aditya. And today we are going to be talking about the situation that Test cricket is finding itself in. Now, I thought this was going to be an interesting topic because we were talking about South Africa and the batting woes at the moment that they are facing. There was an interesting press conference from Mark Boucher. Funnily enough, that press conference was before the news broke about him not being the coach after the T20 World Cup. So it was interesting to hear what he had to say in this particular press conference. I think maybe it is worthwhile, Aditya, for us to maybe just go through some of the main points or go through the press conference. And I'm going to do it like we normally do it, because I think it does give some context into what Mark Boucher thinks about our cricket and the team as well, and where they find themselves. But also what was interesting to me is listening to what he had to say, even though he probably knew in his head that he would not be the coach of South Africa for the next Test series. So it gives us some insight into that. So let's listen to it. Let's have a listen to the press conference, and it will obviously add to our specific topic that we are talking about right now.
The batting issues, but it's your turn. How do you fix the batting?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think we always knew that we were going to be under pressure if the conditions went around a bit. I think it's South Africa. The conditions are not the same. The ball doesn't swing. Contact points are a little bit different. And I know that there's talk of experience in that, but these batters that are here, they have been consistently the best batters in our country. If you ever look at the last, call it top 7 batters that came to play against England and won the last series, I think between them there's 470 odd test matches between the top 7. With our top 10 or 10 of the batters that batted in the top 7 this series, I think we're on about 170. So there's a big difference. The only way you get experience is to actually go out there and play. And these guys, we backed a couple of our batters to play in quite a few test matches in conditions where the ball went around a bit. They haven't come off, which has been an issue for us. And we were sort of forced into a position in this last game where we had to give opportunities to other guys. You can't just keep going on with the same guys and they keep failing, and sometimes it gets into their head as well, and you can see guys really trying hard, but almost like sinking sand. The harder they try, the deeper they fall in. So the batting was the issue. I think our top average was 27, which is just not good enough, and we can't hide away from it. And we got to find a way how to put it right.
You see, there's an issue over there that I have with some of the things that he said. Particularly the part about these batters being the most consistent over the last couple of years. Our domestic cricketers, particularly in 4-day cricket, Aditya, and from my observation of everything, I've seen, for example, I can give you Sarel Erwia. Sarel Erwia had a very wavy time in domestic cricket. There's been maybe the last 2-3 seasons that he really stood out, scoring big tons, etc., and big 50s for his team. But before that, it was very inconsistent. KP was a type of player that scored big, had a crap season, scored massive, had a junk season, went again. He was a type of player that got that. And then towards this end of the last couple of years, he's been getting more consistency. Not having those huge seasons, but having okay seasons, consistently. But how far back do we want to go when it comes to this? They have to start thinking about that, because maybe there are some players that maybe performed well over the last 3 years. Calverainers may be one of them. He's a youngster that has been consistent over the last 3-4 years. So he maybe he hasn't had the time in domestic cricket as Sarel Erwia and KP did, but he's showing he was showing the confidence, he was showing the mentality, he was showing the ability to be able to play 4-day cricket and be one of the top players. There are a lot of other batters that haven't been looked at, and I'm concerned that the main metric looked at is the average and the amount of runs that these players have scored. I'm concerned about that, because if you look at Sarel Erwia compared to some other opening batters in the country, especially the younger ones like Joshua Richards and Matthew Bretsky, there's an important metric over there, and they've only maybe played 4 seasons or 3 seasons, but there's an important metric there that I think says a lot about their character, and that is the ability to be able to convert their 50s into 100s, which is something that Sarel Erwia actually lacks if you look at his stats. Now, yes, he's shown some grit and fight, and yes, he's shown that ability, but not always have they picked in these teams guys that have been consistently great, consistently the best batters. Currently, even in the log, Sarel Erwia wasn't top scorer, KP wasn't top scorer, Ryan Rickleton wasn't the top scorer in the league. The top 2 actually weren't even in contention, which is David Bedingham and Peter Malan. So that's a thing that I don't agree with, because there are certain players that they're allowing them to slip through their fingers, which I don't enjoy. And when I look, and I want to mention something that made me, maybe I read a little bit too much into it, Aditya, but on the auction list, which we're going to go through very soon, David Beddingham's name, next to his name, it said RSA, where it didn't say RSA next to the likes of Marchant Lange, Louis Deploy, and some other players. So that's maybe a bright sign for us, for South Africans. Perhaps we could see him in the rebuild for the future. Maybe Enoch can get that right. Is there anything on the first point that you want to touch on, Aditya, with regards to what Mark had to say?
Yes, and that is, if we're talking about certain players that haven't been doing well, and he mentioned that you keep playing them and they keep failing. It's like sinking sand, and I think he's referring to Aiden Markram there. With Aiden Markram, let's go back to 2021. Where he played fantastically well in Pakistan, and a couple of months later he had a decent series against the West Indies as well. So from there, it went downhill for him. And I think the one question that we need to ask is that we always focus on how do you get a player who's struggling back into form? How do you get a player back to scoring runs the way that he should be scoring runs? But then you also need to ask the question that why did a player who is performing consistently suddenly fall off the rails? What happened there? Whether it was technically or mentally, what changed? Because the Aiden Markram that we know had Test cricket as his strongest format. We like before he became the T20 player that he became. I think for all of us, he was definitely first name on the sheet because he's opening the batting in Test cricket for South Africa. So we also need to ask, where did things go downhill for him? Because you look at what he was doing in the India series, where he's changing his guard, and you know and that's obviously an indication of the fact that he doesn't trust his technique enough, against the new ball. So as much as we talk about how we get a batter back into form, we also need to ask, what set a batter off the rails. For a player who's doing so well, why did he suddenly start underperforming?
And there's a next part over here that's going to irritate me. We're going to continue, but it irritates me, the next part that he says. I don't know if it's the next question or the one after, but let's let it play through.
Do you think maybe there's an element where the batters have a little bit of fear, and where we see England's kind of fearlessness as giving them freedom to play? Is that something you've addressed?
We give the guys freedom to play, to express themselves. Each and every guy. I mean, the way that England would like to go out and play, you need to have the characters to do that first of all. A lot of their guys are good one day and white ball cricketers as well. I think you have to, in these conditions, trust your defence, and we haven't been able to keep out their good balls, and I think that has been the issue as well. I mean, it's one thing to say to guys, go out there and play with a bit of freedom, but there's consequences when guys are fighting for the test spots and fighting for the careers. So as much as a coach can say to you, listen, go out there and play with the freedom within your blueprint. We want you to be nice and aggressive. We want you to play a good attacking style of cricket. It's up to the individual and the character that comes with it, who trusts his defence and really goes out and tries to dominate an attack. There's no message that hasn't been given to batters to be able to go out there and play the way that has got them here in the first place, and with the technique that they've got as well. That's the other thing as well. We've been exposed with quite a few technical flaws, but it's a fine line as a coach, because a guy comes in here and you don't want to change him. This is not an academy of learning. This is test cricket, international cricket. So you don't want to change him too much, because you also don't want to give them the option to say, well, I came in here playing my way. I've gone into test cricket. You've tried to change me, and maybe I should have just been myself. So that's the fine line as a coach, where you've got to maybe just go back to the drawing board and say, right, let's have a look at you playing in all these different conditions and experiencing all this, and hopefully try and get it right the next time you come back here. You look at Hashim Amla's, his technique when he first started playing Test cricket to what it is now. I mean, that's conditioning over lots of time, a lot of experience, going through a couple of ups, a couple of downs, and that's what these guys have to go through.
And I don't agree with what he said there. And using Hashim Amla as an example, kind of, I feel, shot himself in the foot with that statement, I think. And maybe I'm understanding it differently to what you are, Dicha, so you must be in the right on the right lane again. But what irritated me there is he's talking about not wanting to tweak with their techniques and all of this stuff, and not want to tweak with this and that and the other. But when it came to T20 cricket, he didn't have an issue with wanting to add extra shots to people's games and letting them transform their games. For me, the players needed more in Test cricket because they're inexperienced, like he said. If they are inexperienced, then there's a lot for them to learn. So if he's not doing extra work with them to try and improve them, that should have been his job coming in with a 5-year plan, like it was originally supposed to be. He's obviously cut it short now. His eyes are on other things, but none of that has happened. I don't like that we haven't seen. Then what's the point of having a batting coach then? That's my argument then, because then Mr. Boucher over here, who has test experience, can give the players that test experience from his own mouth. He doesn't need a batting coach with no test experience to sit there. Then what's the point of him being there if he's not going to help them with their technique? I mean, it's clear to see that there's an adaptability issue, yes, but we need to face the reality. The reality is that Test cricket is in a position at the moment in South Africa where our 4-day, where the gap between 4-day cricket is massive, and there's no experience in the Test arena to help these players learn the game. All these players, including Mark Boucher, would have had experience said around them when they made their debuts coming onto the scene. Hashim Amla got dropped. But I don't think these guys would have thought, you know what, Hashim Amla got dropped. Maybe in 3 years' time, he's going to come back and be the brilliant batter he is. That took determination from Hashim Amla himself to identify, or with his coaches or whoever is in his team, identify the issues, go and work them out, and then try and push for that position to get into the Proteas team again. It took Hashim Amla to actually be self-motivated to be able to do so. So I have an issue with that. The test arena should also be a learning environment, especially for the younger guys. That's what I believe, at least.
I think a lot of what Bart just said there is consistent with the line that a lot of international coaches tend to take, because I know Ravi Shastri did that as well with the Indian players. But finding that balance between allowing them to be themselves versus sort of equipping them to deal with the conditions in front of them. But again, it brings me back to what I said yesterday. In that we've talked a lot about domestic coaching, and it's obviously of a very high caliber given the names involved. But then we also need to ask the question, how much coordination is going on there? Because if you have all of these coaches of repute in the domestic circuit doing what they're doing, and it's obviously of a very high standard, then why are they not able to replicate those performances at the international level, right? Because I think there is a gap there with the A tours going on, and somewhere with India A, Australia A, etc. There is a gap that is bridged, but I do think that it's a question that certainly needs to be asked.
So you guys can go listen to the rest of that press conference on the channel. It is over there available to you to hear the rest of what Mark Boucher had to say. Mungama's with us now as well, so he's going to give his feelings on this as well. But let's move into the topic, because currently South Africa is in a situation where things, I feel, is going to get a little bit worse before they get better. We don't have any experience in the international arena in Test cricket. Our domestic cricket system at the moment, I feel, is stronger going into this new season than it was last season. A lot of returning bowlers are coming back, good bowlers like Nandre Berger. We've got a lot of players that are getting a lot better. We've got a lot of the youngsters like Aishul Kluti and them becoming men now. Tando Ntini, all of these players that have skill. So Lifa Ntanzi hopefully has a injury-free season, as well as the likes of the of Gerald Coetzee, etc. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a very competitive domestic arena. But the problem for me lies with our test side, because at the moment our players are not going to get enough test cricket to even have the chance to learn. So what do we do at this point? And maybe because of the amount of test cricket, that might have pushed our selectors to want to go for experience first in domestic cricket. But a lot of the experience first players that they pick, I see youngsters going on a trajectory of doing the right things that are getting overlooked. And so for me at this moment, this team needs a proper rebuild. If what Boucher says is true, which is players get to learn in the middle when they're playing test cricket, that's how they learn. The more test cricket they play, the better they become. Then invest in a couple of youngsters that can improve their game still, and there's room for improvement. If he doesn't want to tweak people's career, imagine how hard it's going to be to tweak people's careers when they already experience, already understand the game. Imagine at that point. So Ravi's with us as well. On Gama, I'm going to start with you though. What's your thoughts on where Test cricket is at the moment? Because I feel that we are starting to see the decline of red ball cricket in South Africa, and it scares me.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm just a little bit concerned in terms of what Mark Boucher was saying. Um, because take for instance someone like Aiden Markram, his decline in terms of his red ball form. You can almost see how T20 cricket has affected his red ball game. There's sort of a trend that is going on in the country, um, where T20 cricket is taking a lot of precedence, in terms of as compared to red ball cricket, and that's a huge problem for me. And we've seen it now with the coach leaving the test
Mm.
side for a T20 gig. That is a huge problem, for us. And I think
Quinton de
we,
Kock as
we are
well.
starting to. Exactly, Quentin de Kock as well. So it's a huge concern for me, and I understand. As South Africa, we don't have a lot of money, so these guys have to take care of their families. But I'm also starting to question the importance of red ball cricket to these players and perhaps to the coaches as well, because Aiden Markram, when he left before the Bangladesh Test series, he left after having been dropped as a test opener, because when we were in New Zealand, he was already dropped as a test opener, but he still left for India. That was a huge concern for me, because if you are
Mm.
as committed to playing test cricket and you've just been dropped and you have a series coming up at home with a lot of the other experienced, more safe, experienced players going to the IPL, that means you're going to have opportunities to prove yourself with the Bangladesh series. But he left. So there's a huge problem
Mm.
that we are starting to see its impact now, in terms of T20 cricket, and red ball cricket. So that's what I think in terms of that, man.
Yeah, man, because I mean, it could have been a series that Aiden could have revamped his career almost. You could have resuscitated his career in a way. In that series, it would have been a great series where it all started for him. Against a team where it all started for him, basically. But there's a point over there that irritates me with what Mark Boucher is saying, is because he's saying that it's not there. They shouldn't be tweaking their techniques and stuff like that. Don't want to tweak too much there. But if they're seeing the player as the potential, and he's new to Test cricket and he's never played Test cricket before, and then they see that there's issues, where else is he going to learn the issues to be able to play Test cricket in? He's not going to learn it in domestic cricket. All the experience and all the knowledge is there in the Proteas arena. So it should be a learning environment. Ravi, what's your point on that, on that particular moment, and where South African cricket is now with regards to red ball cricket?
Look, I think we must just bear in mind, Khalid, that uh, for the last year or so, I think the test team have done relatively well. Well, perhaps not the last year, because I mean they did rack up a win against India at home. They did the same against Bangladesh on a spinning track that should have gone against us, as history would indicate. So I don't think it's all necessarily doom and gloom. If you're talking about this series in isolation from the others, we have to bear in mind that two individuals in the current batting lineup, and let's face it, we failed in batting. If you had to really look at it at a granular level, we failed at batting. The bowlers did not do a bad job at all in the test format. Two batters in that entire lineup have 1,000 test runs, over 1,000 test runs. That was Dean Elgar and Keshav Maharaj. This was in the last test. So obviously, we are going to get caught out at some point, because the inexperience was quite evident. Was certainly right there. I honestly, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't have betted on the Proteas pulling off a win in that situation, even with our bowling attack. Because at the end of the day, you're just as reliant on your batters as you are on your bowlers, as formidable an attack as we had. Um, the reality is that the only time you're really going to get the experience that you're talking about is in the test arena. You're not going to get it at home. You're not going to get it at county. I hate it when guys lambaste the Proteas selectors for not choosing the county players over the local domestic guys, thinking that they're the ones that are going to rack up the best performances. Because even the guys that are playing county cricket that were in the Protea squad didn't come to the party, right? There's a lot of lauding and praising for selecting Vian Mulder, but I think you can't really put him in isolation or put him on a chopping block necessarily, but he wasn't our savior, and he's played a substantial amount of county cricket. So was Keegan Peterson as well, and that didn't save us. I think we're talking about cumulative years of experience. We're talking about tried and tested circumstances. We know these boys can play at home. I think we need to put them in trying circumstances away as well. And let's face it, true to form, we lost one, we won one, and we obviously lost two now against England away from home. That seems to be the pattern when you're playing away, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this doesn't come as a surprise. I think the changes that the fans want to see is not going to happen overnight. Even when somebody replaces Mark Boucher, it could be Ricky Ponting for, like, yeah, I'm not saying, please don't quote me on that. Ricky Ponting is not the successor to Mark Boucher. But what I'm saying is there could be anybody. But the frailties batting-wise are still going to be there. And it's going to take a sizable amount of time and experience to get us to the level we should be playing at. Because the guys are capable. The young guns are capable. Putting Keegan Peterson in a category, he's definitely capable. I honestly expected more from him in particular, because he actually went in with a great vein of form into the series, starting 4 weeks back.
Aren't you concerned though, Ravi? And just one last question for you is, aren't you concerned though that this is a full cycle? Mark Boucher took over with a home tour against England, started off brilliantly, completely destroyed in the other three matches. And now we've come full circle back to England again in his final game for the test series for the Proteas, now as coach. And we've gotten worse. I mean, isn't that a concern for you? Because, I mean, I thought that there'll be improvements at least. I thought there would be, because he's going against everything that he said in this last broadcast. The actions speak louder than words for me. Because when they decided to drop Aiden Markram, they picked Peter Malan. They gave him a series and dropped him. Shouldn't he have then be given more game time to actually prove himself then before they started picking another opener? That's my concern over here, is that he's saying that, yes, the only place you can learn test cricket is in the test arena. But then he's saying that the other side is saying, but they don't want to change people's techniques too much, because that's not the test. That's not what that area is about. Basically, he's ultimately saying you have to be ready, or if you're not ready, you go. They're not going to want to tweak you too much, which is baffling to me if the gap is that big, because your role as a coach at the end of the day is to coach.
Exactly. But I think
even
Ronaldo,
the greatest player in the world, gets coached still to this day.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if Ronaldo can play cricket.
Mentality.
That is very talented, I would agree. But if he can bowl an off spin, I'll be very surprised. No, you're quite right. I think as a coach, yes, you need to spot the frailties from a mile away. And the other thing is, as a coach, is a strategic component as well, and a technical component. You need to pair the individuals that have batting frailties with the best possible coaches and solutions that can spot your challenges from a mile away. I know that Boucher had a long-standing relationship with Khalid. They tried that. It worked and it didn't. They tried it with other guys. There was another batting consultant that was there, and they managed to get it right in some tests. And unfortunately, the last two tests against England, it didn't quite work out. I think when it comes to batters changing techniques, it's nothing more evident than watching Aiden Markram. If you look at him in the first test, in fact, in both tests, the first and the second test against England, the amount of times that guy changes guard and his batting stances, it's ridiculous. I think if you want to talk about the negative consequences of T20 cricket, I think that's had a ripple effect and an ugly impact on the way individuals are batting in the Test arena in particular. Forget baseball. I think the impact of poor batting techniques and stances and approaches to the game really started with the introduction of T20 cricket and the more aggressive formats in the white ball arena. It had reared its way into Test cricket in particular. Markram has done that. If you look at Ryan Rickleton as well, he did this Kepler Vessel thing where he liked to bat on the off stump, and he was doing this thing where he was trying to play a cover drive while he was batting on the off stump guard. That stuff didn't quite make sense to me because I didn't see Rickleton do that in a domestic setup, yet we saw him do that now. And it shows that A, there's a degree of uncertainty, B, the conversations they're having about the deficiencies in the batting lineup aren't the accurate and the correct conversations, which means that maybe this is the time to start window shopping for a coach anyway, even if Boucher didn't hang up the boots in the first place. I would say, if anything, the most visible gap is definitely a competent batting coach to get the guys to speak the right language, to spot out the frailties from a mile away, just to get the guys to do what it is they're capable of doing in the first place.
Yeah. Okay, Aditya.
And if I can,
Wrap
if I can jump in
No,
on
stop.
there, Khalid, if I can get in like on there, Khalid, I'm starting to question whether this whole you don't learn at Test cricket, whether it's applicable to the South African Test side or not. Just like using selection, using the experience first as a selection criteria, is it applicable? Is it something that it can be applied to our Test side? Yes, it cannot be applied to other Test nations, but to us, we've got a young team, you've got
Exactly.
inexperienced guys. You are gonna have to change a few things, and I feel like he's contradicting himself, because in the same press conference, it goes on to say that the only way that these guys are gonna get experience is if they play, which means they have to learn. So if they are in a learning process, what do you mean when you say that this is not a place to learn? So it's a bit puzzling, man. It's a bit puzzling. And also another thing, you spoke about Peter Malan not getting an opportunity. I think a great example is with Rudy Second and Calverain replacing Rudy Second, because Rudy Second, not so long ago, he was a replacement keeper for Quentin de Kock. But then Calverain had done a lot of work in domestic cricket. So everyone could understand why he sort of jumped ahead of Rudy Second. But when it comes to Sarel Erve, I don't see anything that Sarel Erve has done, to warranty a spot ahead of someone like Peter Malan, who has already been given a chance before Sarel, and he didn't do a bad job against England at home, So there's
Tough
been some
conditions as well.
decisions, man, that I don't understand. There's been some decisions that I don't understand, and maybe we make it sound like the Proteas have been too bad. They haven't been too bad. We've won a series against India. We all know that, but we have to be realistic. That was purely because of our bowling attack. We have to be realistic. It was only a matter of time until we get exposed. I mean, even Mark Boucher said it in the press conference that they couldn't quite challenge England because they did not have enough runs on the board. And that's been the same trend throughout the start of this World Test Championship campaign. So it's a big problem, man. There's been some questionable approaches and techniques that are used that I don't necessarily think they are applicable to us.
100%. This guy. Wow. See, OG, I've been telling you so long to come on the bloody shows. Aditya, take us home. I'm gonna have to end the stream, so take us home. Your final points, please.
I actually want to expand on what Ravi said about having a competent batting coach. And I think that needs to take place at the domestic level also. Because if you have batters doing decently well, we think are international material, they still have to be in the habit of scoring hundreds in a wide variety of conditions. And the thing with South Africa is that South Africa has access to a wide variety of conditions, and there needs to be, like a proper pipeline of batters who are churning out hundreds. But if there's a batting coach in all the domestic teams, then at that point, batters will be developed enough to be able to succeed at international level. And again, as I said yesterday, then when you get to the international level, you just need to do some fine tuning, as opposed to actual coaching. Um, so I think
Yeah.
that's my only addition to the point there.
I mean, I think at the moment we are sitting with a fishing situation. It's a fishing trip almost, because they're just throwing it out to the sea and seeing who bites it, and that's the person that stays. Ultimately, that's what's been happening. As soon as a person fails, they're gone. I mean, look at what happened to Tiernus de Bruin in the past. I mean, we all thought that that's going to be the next guy for South Africa, the way he was performing at domestic cricket. He was hitting 1,000 runs almost every season. And he scored, yes, he scored essentially under very difficult circumstances in Sri Lanka. And then we didn't see him again. I mean, that's crazy for me, because if what Boucher's saying is correct, you need to give them time to learn. They go into different conditions. Every tour they go on, they're learning new things. So when Chatley says in the thing, in the comment section over here, he says, players, how can an international coach change a player's makeup technique in 1 month? It's not 1 month. He's been there 3 years. There are certain players over here that he could have. Aiden Markram has been with him since the start of his tenure. He could have helped Aiden Markram. We all can see what the issues are. We all can
Even
see.
Keegan Khalid, even Keegan Khalid, he was
Even
in
Keegan
the
Peterson.
Proteas
Keegan
setup
was there.
during the
He was there for a while.
2019 England series. He was there.
Look
And
at
another
Zubair
thing,
Hamza.
if I
Look
can
at
add,
Zubair
if I
Hamza,
can
how
add
he
a
was
bit more.
exposed. Look how Zubair Hamza was exposed in England against England with that short deliveries. He went back to domestic cricket. He had to go work with Ashwell and ask Ashwell to help him, actually, for him to come back. He wasn't getting that help in the international arena. He should be getting it there if you have experienced international coaches and things around you. They must be able to pick it out and then work on that and then see the improvements test to test. Every test mustn't be ooh, I'm in the dark. I don't know what's going to be happening. It shouldn't be like that. Give players 3 points that they need to improve on. I mean, we know that. I know for a fact that in football, for example, a guy like Erik ten Hag or like a guy like Jurgen Klopp or Pep will give players. They speak about it in their interviews, etc., and other things that they've done. They give players certain pointers. This is the type of things that I want to see you improve over the next couple of games. Try and improve this aspect of your game. This is how you can do it. This is the extra drills you can do. This is the extra. That's how you help them with actually giving them a plan on how to improve. I mean, you can't just give them 35 tests and not give them any input and expect them just to thumb suck and work it out. Sorry, on Gamma.
Yeah, nah. I'm done, man. I'm done.
Sorry, man. Okay, we got a super chat, I think. Oh, there we go. Boom. Lorenzo saying surely Tiernus de Bruin must get another crack, and he should, because he's been very, 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 very consistent in Test cricket. And I don't know what the issue is over there. Guys, we have an awesome episode. I hope it comes out tomorrow, but we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow with a very important special guest that will be able to give us insight into this, domestic and international. Hopefully it comes. Stay tuned tomorrow for the show. I'm not going to tell you guys who it is, but stay tuned for the show tomorrow. You'll see the advert going around about who it is. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click that notification bell for all future videos. I'm out of here, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow with another daily show. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, everybody, and peace out.